Hi, my name is Morgan Taylor, and I'm going to be giving a speech over the various models of human communication, including a model that I have created myself. I'll begin by discussing the models that are already in place, which includes the transmission model, the interactive model, and the transactional model. The transmission model is the simplest form of human communication models, where we have two communicators, the speaker and the listener, where the speaker encodes messages and the listener decodes the messages. These two communicators will converse with each other via channel, and the only interference in this model will be any background noise affecting their communication. Then when we move on to the interactive model, it becomes a little bit more complex, where not only do we have the background noise interfering in conversation, but each bit of communication is subjective to the communicator's past experiences, because any past experiences they have will interfere and relate to the conversation that they're having with the other person. Then when we come to the transactional model, we also include nonverbal communication, where we have gestures, facial expressions, hand movement, etc., that will play into how communication is interpreted by each communicator. So my model will take all three of these and just make it a little bit more complex, and I've dubbed it as the subjective interpretation model, because it really just focuses in on the fact that there are so many factors that change how communication is interpreted from person to person. So the subjective interpretation model will take into account these other things that the models have, such as background noise affecting conversation, but it will also take into account the nonverbal communication from the transactional model, which is including your facial expressions, your body movement, your eye contact, which can all change the way that your communication is received by another person. If you look very angry during your speech, then people aren't going to receive it as well. It's also going to take into account your inner thought process and how this will affect the way you communicate with others. Because if your thoughts get jumbled, oftentimes your speech will get jumbled as well. And not only does it take into account your past experiences and how those will affect your speech, it also takes into account your current emotions, that if you're angry, if you're sad, if you're happy, all of these will be reflected in the way you communicate with somebody. And also, it will take into account barriers to communication, such as a language barrier, a disinterest in the conversation, or a lack of focus between either of the communicators. So as you can see, my model really just hones in on the fact that communication is subjective to every single communicator, and there are so many different factors that can influence the way that we interpret communication as both a speaker and a listener. And that's all.